All right, everybody, welcome to Tesla Today. So, for today's show, we've got two fun topics. The first one is, should Tesla buy Uber? There's been discussion on Twitter. We have Gary Black, who's one of the institutional investors, who's suggesting that Tesla should buy Uber. We'll dive deep into that a little bit about Uber stats and information, whether or not there's benefits of Tesla. And then we'll do an update on Tesla Bot as well. So today we've got Hans Nelson with us. He's you can find him on both Twitter and YouTube at Hans C. Nelson. He's a mechanical engineer, worked in manufacturing, and he's a regular in the Tesla Twitter community, Tesla X community, I guess I should say. Welcome, Hans. Thank you for joining me. Appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.
Wonderful. So when you heard about Tesla possibly buying Uber, I think you told me your first reaction is like immediately no. Tell me what you think.
Yeah, I mean, I don't love the idea. I love Gary, and I understand that, from if you're an institutional money manager and you are not super optimistic on the timeline that FSD is going to roll out, you would love to start seeing Tesla moving into the ride-hailing business proactively. And so I understand where Gary is coming from. And it does make sense, from that perspective to have the brand name of Uber behind you. But man, it is just such an expensive purchase for essentially no technical value, in my personal opinion, as far as there's a lot of consumer data, but all of that data has limited scalability into, pure robotaxi type network. And really that's the prize. And I think Elon is right to be focused on going straight for that type of a network. And he's been asked a number of times on a number of calls if Tesla will ever consider having a network with drivers, building out a ride hailing network. And I think he actually has, now that I'm thinking about it, he has considered the idea. He said maybe when they're getting close, if I remember correctly. This probably would have been maybe 2 years ago now. But that said, I don't think he's interested in paying even more for Uber than he paid for Twitter when, Uber, other than just having massive scale and a large number of operators, there's not a whole lot that they bring to the table. While they do business in many jurisdictions, I don't think that they have the ability to get robotaxi approved any sooner in those jurisdictions than Tesla would have. And so, yeah, there's just not a whole lot of value. And I think Alexandra makes some good points as we get into the back and forth on the pros and the cons. And I tend to agree with her position on this more.
It doesn't make any sense to me at all. The last thing you want to do is come out with a product or business that's human drivers and then try to change that brand into robotaxi. It's a very, very difficult thing. Doesn't make sense to me. But yes, just to clarify, I think what Gary's saying is buy Uber before robotaxi. Let's see what he says. We will go through his tweets and his positions. And then what we'll do too is go through and share a lot of information about Uber as a company now so we can evaluate it. So this is what Gary Black tweeted this morning. Gary is the managing director for the Future Fund. He's actually the past CEO for large institutional firms in the past. He's well respected in the investor community. So he's kind of our liaison between the retail investors to Tesla and the institutional firms. So this is how institutional firms think. So he says, not sure why Tesla just doesn't buy Uber to get into autonomous ride hailing and get all the data from its platform of 137 million consumers who take 25 million trips per day. So this person named Jonah replied, agreeing with him. He says, if autonomous is the future, Tesla needs to buy Uber or build their own ride-sharing network, which is very expensive, or partner with Uber, most logical. Yeah, partnering with Uber makes sense, but not buying it. Cruise is owned by GM. Waymo is owned by Google. I think Uber and Waymo already have a partnership, but that doesn't mean Tesla wouldn't be a better partner. So here's some stats. So just to set the stage, Uber is a leading global rideshare app. We understand that. I think their brand is pretty strong. Service is available in 10,000 cities across 71 countries. and they have 93 million active users. They processed 26 billion worth of bookings. I don't know why it's in 2020 because this is most recent, just a month ago. 1.44 billion rides every quarter. 68% share of the US rideshare market, and the rest is mostly Lyft. 5 cities contribute 22% of Uber's gross margins, gross sales. So they have 68% share of the US rideshare market. And there's 3.5 million drivers. And that pool has actually dropped down 40% from 5 million in 2019. And this whole idea of, why do you want to take on the drivers when the whole point is not have drivers in your future? So this is how much they're worth: $95 billion market cap. This is as of today. What do you think? I don't even need to ask you the question, right? We have
Yeah, I mean,
$123
$95
billion
billion.
in cash.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Why?
So someone did make a good point. If what you really want is to buy a company like that, buy Lyft. It's $5 billion. And it's most of the rest of that market share. Also, a large global presence, bang for your buck. If you want to do that, buy Lyft. Don't buy Uber. Yes, Uber has the bigger brand name for now, but that's not really worth that extra $90 billion, in my opinion. I do think, though, that Jonah made a great point that, Uber would be a great partner to work with, but you don't want to, even culturally, the Uber employees are never going to integrate into the move fast culture that Tesla has at the level that Elon will need. It would require another 80% reduction in headcount. So many projects would have to get axed. It would just be carnage. And I don't think that Elon is interested in taking on that type of a project right now.
Yeah, Uber has 22,800 employees working for them. Tesla has 130,000 employees. So yeah, pretty big. Just another bit of stat here. This is Uber's loss since 2014. I think they were founded in 2009. In 2014, this is how much they've lost. Boom. $31 billion of operating losses. And then now they're making profit, $326 million. But you said that's not real profit. What do you mean?
Well, it's operating profits. It's not like GAAP net profits.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay, so let's hear more from the back and forth between Gary and others, including Alexandra Mertz. So Alexandra says, Gary, look, we're both old enough to know that Wall Street geniuses like you advising Apple to buy Sony because they had a Walkman. Then it was BlackBerry. They keep saying, buy this company, buy that. Horrible advice. Gary says, you're mistakenly thinking about hardware. Tesla should buy Uber for the data. So what data is he talking about? The 25 million rides a day. Let's just quickly pause there and tell me, what data is he talking about? Because they don't have the cameras around the thing. They're just the app and the drives, and they got, what data is he talking about? 25 million rides a day.
The only thing I can think of is, the consumer habit, what are people willing to spend in what locations? There is a lot of commercial data that is relevant if you want to operate a taxi network or fleet, whether it's ride hailing or robotaxi, either one. And that is information that is somewhat valuable. But again, Lyft has the exact same data pretty much, close to the same scale, and is much less. So if that data is that important, well, at least don't pay 18 times more for it than you have to.
Yeah, this is JP, another Tesla community member. He says he's in agreement. He thinks that Tesla should buy Uber. He says the app, customer base, trip data, and global legal jurisdiction approvals are worth more than the whole company today. It's the fastest way to scale to robo taxi in the future. And then Alexandra's replies, well, the app is $0. I mean, Tesla is an innovation software company, probably a liability. The customer base is pie in the sky. Trip data is pie in the sky. Global legal description are easy to obtain. The tricky one might be the autonomous license, but Uber does not have that. So 95 billion for bubbles. What do you think?
Yep. I mean, that's my feelings exactly. I just don't think that the data that they have, or being able to operate as a business in those locations. So I'm not enough of a legal expert to know. This would be a great question to someone like Richard, from Not Legal Advice. Yeah, is there a difference in the licenses necessary? Probably so. Then Tesla already has just to sell vehicles. So, that could be something, but like Alexandra pointed out, I don't think that allows you to operate as a robo-taxi network. That's an entirely different thing. And so if you're not getting, it'd be one thing if they bought, imagine a world where Waymo had no fleet, but they actually had all of the regulatory approvals. And so they had everything worked out, but no ability to capitalize on it. Well, that's a great acquisition target if you can purchase their regulatory approvals and then backfill it with a Tesla fleet.
Right.
But something like Uber, where they don't have any licenses to operate autonomous vehicles as a ride hailing network, I think that's much more limited in value and scope.
And then we should remember that it was Uber that was trying to dabble into autonomy, and then it was their driver that horrifically killed a person, a pedestrian. And then the legal proceeding, the legal outcome just came out a few days ago, and the court cited saying that the driver is responsible, not the autonomous car. So that driver who was, playing her game at the time was the one that's going to be legally at risk. So I don't know. I have to think through what that means ongoing, if that's a precedent or not, if it's just one off. But, Uber already has a negative brand associated with this pretty bad because they're the only company that autonomy company that past actually killed somebody. So let's just complete a little bit of his thinking here. Here's Gary Black saying, "Look, I'm just surprised that many folks here are implying I want to buy someone's antiquated hardware." Okay, he wants a data, so Tesla can bring autonomy to near flawless levels. Comparing 400,000 FSD beta users' data to 6 million Uber drivers' data with 25 million trips per day is apples versus oranges. So I think again, I'm trying to think of what data he's talking about other than that would be helpful for autonomy. I guess he knows the routes that they're taking, and I think that if Tesla was able to know in every city, how many cities we just talked about, 5,000 cities, what are the main routes that make up 90+% of all revenue and sales, then Tesla can really focus on those routes and make sure that they're flawless. Maybe that's the data he's talking about, the 25 million trips per day. That would be very useful for Tesla to know to then do that. That's his data.
I did see some other tweets that he made where he was saying that the intent for him would be for Tesla to actually outfit all of the 6 million vehicles with autonomous hardware. So go ahead and do a full FSD suite on them. I don't know how you retrofit at a car that is not a Model 3 or a Model Y with the FSD. Like, I think that his idea is much more difficult to, like, it would be one thing if you could quickly and easily do that, if it was a relatively small investment and you could just put these cameras on all those vehicles, put a little FSD computer in the trunk and then go ahead and collect that information, as both getting the commercial data and getting all the FSD data. But they can scale up, just because it's only 400,000 beta users right now, that is continuing to scale up as the system gets more capable. which would have to do anyway. Like even if they owned Uber, they couldn't scale it up faster. By the time that FSD really reaches the level of capability that is necessary in order to move forward towards making a robotaxi fleet, they're going to have well over 6 million vehicles in the fleet that they can push either in shadow mode or actual active users. I'll bet you at that point in time, we have well over, when we get to 12 and it's no longer beta, we'll probably have 1.5 million users, and that number will be growing exponentially. The miles, like we're on track right now to surpass, I think, 1 trillion miles, or is it 1 billion?
Well, he said it's going to be over billions. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so confusing to me. I am going to do a one-on-one interview with Gary tomorrow, so I'm going to be able to ask him more questions about this. But
Yeah, that would
he's
be
like,
great.
He's like, what are you talking about, man? Like, these cars are not owned by Uber; they're owned by drivers.
Individual.
They're going to now put in the cameras and the FSD so they can track the data for you, but you're not going to turn them into autonomy because the drivers make their living. I'm confused. So confused when he said that you would add the cameras to the cars. Okay, I don't get it. So the other thing he said was, so let me pause there for a second. Do you actually think, let's assume that these are ICE cars. Do you think that Tesla and Elon would actually want to retrofit an ICE car, a gas car, to make it autonomous?
No. No, it's directly against the mission, because every ICE vehicle that you retrofit with autonomous hardware drives 5 times the normal amount of miles that an ICE car would normally drive. And so, they've talked about the benefit that autonomy brings to EVs in accelerating how many EV miles are taken from ICE miles. But then if you license to ICE vehicles, then you basically take that advantage away. And I just don't see that fitting
Despite
with
the
the mission. Yep.
safety, saving people, if it's
That
safety, you want to spread it out and give it away for free.
that is definitely the best argument for it, is just safety, that we need to do this. And that might be enough in and of itself.
Yeah.
Now, I just don't know if it would be something that he would license for commercial use as a ride-hailing fleet.
Here's a funny thing. Look what he says next. He says this. He says, you and other investors think OEMs and Uber will just magically pay Tesla hundreds of millions in licensing fees for FSD. So wait, then why would you retrofit the cars with
FSD hardware.
what FSD if what? Elon has been asking for them to do that for years, and so far no takers. Well, come on. What do you mean, no takers? We already heard that he's in early discussions with a major OEM, but okay.
Likely Ford.
So what do you think? Would Uber not magically pay Tesla hundreds of millions in license fee for FSD? Of course they will. Come on. Because as soon as you retrofit, let's say you spend somebody, like, I don't know what they'll charge them, but first of all, it'll probably be a subscription model. It'll be some sort of lease kind of thing. But the value of an autonomous car is like already 5 times worth. It's just ridiculous profit. So why wouldn't you pay licensing fees? I mean, you'll make it up very quickly.
Yeah, they're of course not going to pay for that now because they can't take the driver out of the car. But when you can take the driver out of the car, then they will trip over themselves and pay whatever it takes, as long as it's less than they're paying the drivers that they currently pay in order to license it. Like, it's a no-brainer.
Right. Okay. So let's just clarify, right? So obviously Tesla needs an app. They need a ride-hailing app. And as far as I'm concerned, we are all watching the Tesla app every month, adding a new feature that in aggregate, all of a sudden, they all kind of like help with this potential of a ride-hailing app concept, right? Secondly, Tesla needs, and he said that we will need fleet managers, right? So, he said like shepherds, so that they will take care of washing the car anytime something breaks down, maybe even, managing the customers and so forth. But basically, they'll need fleet managers. So they will partner with maybe Hertz. They'll partner with maybe Uber to be able to fleet managers. Now, the question is, will they lease the car? Will they just sell the cars to these fleet managers, or will Tesla own it and then hire fleet managers to manage it and get a cut?
I tend towards the latter just because I think that Elon and Tesla will want more people to be stakeholders external to the company instead of having people be employees. That they would rather, sell those assets out to external, because they're, on track to be such a large company that the more value that they can push outside the boundaries of their company, the better that will be long term, so that they are less of a target for regulatory oversight and potentially monopoly concerns.
Hey there, thank you for joining me. If you can, please consider supporting this channel so I can keep it going. It's a lot of work arranging all these amazing interviews. One of the easiest ways is just to click that join button and become a member of the channel. Thank you very much. Let's get brighter. Yeah. And it doesn't make sense to me that they would buy Uber for their app. Although somebody actually said, listen, they've spent whatever, 20 years with 20,000 engineers, maybe not 20,000 engineers, but like thousands of engineers to build this app. It took them a long time.
Yeah, Volkswagen hired 5,000 engineers to build their OS too. It doesn't mean a whole lot.
Exactly. Elon will say, I just need 40 and I can replicate the Uber app the next 2 months. He did buy Twitter, though, to accelerate the X app by 3 years. Now, that's
I've heard that the engineering team is down to 30 people.
Yeah.
That's just insane. I don't understand.
That's insane. Yeah, so I think that, Tesla would most likely, they already have the Tesla app. That's the point. And they're already building it. And I've been saying they've been adding feature after feature that in aggregate helps with Robotaxi future. So very interesting for fun. What do you think will happen then? Yeah, so it's going to be, do you think that they would actually get into ride hailing before Robotaxi? No.
I don't think so. I think that they're head down focused on solving full autonomy. And, it may still take several more years. We've been saying it was coming for a long time. But I think focusing, it's such a step change in capability. It's such a step change in the valuation of the company that they need to be focused on that above all else. And then once that exists, all of that other infrastructure is, pales in comparison. It's, much easier to accomplish, whether it's building an app, scaling out a network, all those things. And, the other thing, they still need to continue to roll out insurance. Like, that is going relatively slowly because they're going to need, I would be highly surprised if they operated any robotaxi networks in jurisdictions outside of places where they offer Tesla insurance, because they're going to be the ones assuming liability. And so that already kind of caps the size. And also, they're only going to be able to produce so many vehicles for a while. It's going to be a huge step change, but it's also going to be really slow at the same time. I don't know. That's one of the reasons that I'm glad that I'm a long-term investor. I don't have to figure out when it's going to happen. I just know I'm going to be invested in this company at least for the next 10 years, probably much longer than that. And somewhere in there, they'll figure it out and value will accrue to the stock and I'll be fat, dumb, and happy.
Yeah, it's happening sooner than we all think. Okay. Well, the other thing that we want to talk about is the bots. So that was fun, the Uber question, but now the bots. So let's just review what was actually said at the Q2 earnings call. So I took some of this kind of the transcript of what that was said. So the question that was asked, how many Optimus bots have been made? When will they be able to start performing useful tasks? And Elon replied saying, 10 million, haha. Yeah, I think we're around 5 or 6 bots. We're 10. He said, we're 10. I guess which ones are which, how many are working what phase? It's going to maybe about 10, right? So it looks like there's 6 really functional bots, maybe 4 more. They're kind of somewhere in between. but it's sort of, yeah, like this is more and more every month. So more and more of these being made, but it sure sounds like that they're being handmade, all of them. And then he says that, we found that there are actually no suppliers for the production of the actuators, which he has said the last call. There's no off the shelf actuators that work well for a humanoid robot. And then somebody, unknown speaker, said, certainly not a compelling humanoid robot. And he goes, yes. So what actually, we had to design our own actuators that integrate the motor, the power electronics, the controller, the sensors, and really every one of these is custom designed. So then, of course, we'll be using the same inference hardware as the car. We are end designing these actuators, designing them for volume production, right? So they're not just making the actuators, they want to make them in such a way that they're all ready for scaling. So there's, I think, 40 actuators inside one bot, and they want them all to be exactly the same all over the place, versus other bots that I've been reviewing where there's like, different actuators for the hips, different actuators for, and so many of them don't even have the vertical ones. So they're just lighter, tighter, more capable. These are also actually manufacturable, so we'll be able to make them in volume.
Yeah, I think
so
there
then,
are
yeah,
6 or 7 unique SKUs of actuators. There's like 3 different rotational ones, 3 different linear ones, and then I think the finger ones are all the same, but that one's different than the 3 and 3. So it's like, I think 7 total different actuator designs that they need. They have 3 sizes, for each, for the rotation and the linear actuators. So, and that's huge. James Dauma was the first one that I remember basically calling this. He said, Tesla needs to get into creating a humanoid robot. And when they do, the first thing they're going to have to do is make all new actuators, because no one makes good ones for this use case. And so there's a lot of room for someone who's intelligent at actuator design to come in and make something custom that is specifically for this application, but can be mass manufactured. And he was just kind of, talking off the cuff. And this was well before Optimus had been announced. And then they did it. And I thought that
yeah,
was, a great call
yeah,
on his point, to not only see the use case and the need, but then to forecast, hey, when they do this, actuators are going to be the big deal. And so one of the things that we know is that, yeah, they're working on all those designs. They're making some functional bots. They're hand building each of these actuators, and then they're installing them on bots, putting them through their paces, doing a lot of validation testing. And so right now they're in the stage that they are really validating the designs for those actuators, so that they know that the performance is where they need it to be, reliability is where they need it to be, and then also that it can be manufacturable. And it's great that, Tesla makes all their own electric motors already for their cars. And we heard at the shareholder day how their next generation permanent magnet motors, they're going to be able to make the motor shop significantly smaller to produce more motors. So like, they are really very advanced in their ability to mass manufacture electric motors. Actuators are just specialized electric motors. And so they have that full feedback loop of design and manufacturing, data from the field on reliability. And so they're just going through all of their P's and Q's, doing all of the due diligence that they need to do to make sure these things are right. And then once, Elon said, I don't know if we read that part yet, that they'll be getting their first production ready, like the candidates. Yes. Yeah, production candidate actuators should be back so that they can be put into bots somewhere in November-ish. We'll just say by the end of the year. And then once those production candidates get validated, it'll probably be another month or 2 after that the mass production runs will start for the actuators. And once the actuators are being produced in mass, that's when we can start seeing the bot begin to be manufactured in a more automated way. And hopefully we should see the bot fleet just explode.
exactly. Okay. So, I mean, I think I've already explained my position on this, but I'm sure people want to hit me on it. But I mean, so I've been interviewing quite a number of robot experts over the last several months. And what they've all said was this Tesla bot is actually not as hard as people think. Because you remember a few months ago, everybody, the general public and the Twitter community was all saying, don't talk bot because the bot won't be around for 3 to 5 years from now. Do you not know how hard it is to create a humanoid robot that can actually walk? And then we saw it on demo. We started happening, and then people kept saying this won't happen. Now, there was folks that were saying that look, they need to create 1,000 of these or 500 of them because that's when, just like the cars, the more you have out there, the more cameras, the more it can learn. It needs the data to be able to teach it the neural nets and so forth to learn how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I said maybe I said it's not going to be 1,000, it's not going to be 500, but I think maybe 100 by the end of this year, because we had assumed that they were manually producing these bots, but that the actuators, because he had already said we had to design it, that it had already been kind of designed. You can see 5 of them walking around. It looked like that they had already kind of figured this out, and that they were about to make 100. So I was wrong, and I've already said that. That obviously here we've got 10 and we won't be able to do this, ramp it up until November. But let's hear what he just said, right? We have designed these actuators. We've designed a robot to be for mass scaling and manufacturing, and that by November we would start ramping up after that. And and we call it production candidate actuators. Production candidate, which means it can be ramped up. And so, yes, there's not 100 this month, but all of a sudden, what is it going to be next year? It's not going to be none, as many people were thinking. It's not 3 years from now. It's next year that it's not going to be useful. It's already being used, and these bots could already be used in the factory now. There's some signs that it's already being used. Onesie twosie stuff just to see, but definitely by near. He said we'll try this out in our own factories, proving its utility. And I think we'll be able to have it do something useful in our factories sometime next year. Something useful in our factories sometime next year. That means that it's actually like already there, already doing it as part of the production line, not just testing, which is probably what's happening this year. So it's like one of those things where optimists were caught for this year, but the pessimists were very wrong, thinking that this is going to take 3-5 years. It's actually next year. And we're talking scale, like you were saying. So
yeah, and we won't see them outside of Tesla for quite a while.
yeah, I never said that too.
But yeah, they will be in large numbers produced, and I think that's, to kind of Randy's point, they want to, once they can get them mass manufactured and get as many of them into the factory as possible, they will do that because they will want to do all of the fleet learning that they need to do in order to make them useful. And it'll be a fascinating. I'm more bullish on Optimus production than Cybertruck production. I think that we'll end up making more Optimus bots next year than Cybertrucks.
Exactly. And then the other reason why I said what I was saying was because I don't know if folks here had actually heard the CIO of OpenAI, okay, was interviewed, and they asked him the question, did you guys consider getting into humanoid robots? And his answer was, we did do a deep, research this, and we decided not to, because we realized that in order to do this properly, you need to be so committed to this endeavor, this project. You need tens of thousands of bots to be able to basically learn, teach it the neural nets. And so instead of them doing it, what they decided to do instead was invest in companies and bots. That is 1X is the one example of a bot that they invested in that they're working on. So he himself has said that you need thousands, tens of thousands to really learn their neural nets and so forth. So this is an example of a project where once you've got something that is production ready, you'll scale that, make thousands at least, if not more. Pause, see work, learn, then make more as fast. And it doesn't cost them a lot of money. This is not like a car. Costs less than $10,000, if not cheaper, when you start doing mass production. So
Well, and
Interesting.
to
Oh,
Scott's
yeah.
amazing point that, a penny saved is a penny earned. And
Right.
so they have the use cases necessary to get an ROI, even if they can just offset, if it costs them
Yep.
$10,000 to produce a bot and that bot over its useful life, they can offset $5,000 worth of labor. Well, you've just cut your investment into your learning by half. And it wouldn't surprise me if, they'll use that thing for at least 6 months to a year before, they're going to be rapidly iterating the design. So like I don't expect the first 10,000 bots to really have a super long life, especially because they're going to be falling down. Like they'll be on harnesses and stuff, but they're going to get beat up in the process of learning. They're not going to be just these amazing, super capable things, but they will learn. And when they get to that point, they will be. And yeah, it's like every fallen Optimus bot contributes a valuable piece of knowledge to the future fleet of Optimi. And yeah, so like all of those, and they, they're a massive company with massive operating profits already, massive gap net profits. And so they can afford to invest this and they are committed to it. And Elon needs these honestly for Mars. And so like he's going to be gung ho. So they have the economic case to be fully committed to building the size of fleet necessary to fully train a very capable humanoid robot. And yeah, 10 years from now, we'll be living in the Jetsons' future.
It is very, very exciting. I cannot believe you and I right now and we're talking bots. We're talking autonomy, driverless cars, and we're talking that this year, next year, we're all debating, is it this year, next year, is it 3 years from now? You're crazy. It's 4 years from now, it's 5 years from now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
We're
in the
talking
grand
about
scheme
it.
of things, even if it's 10 years from now, it's a drop in the
It's
bucket. Like
crazy.
it's such a huge step change in the
Yeah.
capability that we
So
have as a society.
how I don't know how old you are, but are you aware of the $6 Million Man? Do you know about that TV show?
Yes. Yes.
Really? Are
Hmm.
you just a geek or what? What? How do you know this?
Yeah,
Young
I
kid?
watched a lot of old TV as a kid, so.
Of course, I'm old enough. I do know the $6 Million Man. That caught my attention, right? Astronaut. I can't remember his name now. Steve. Uh, right? Crashed, and then they had to rebuild him, and they called him a $6 Million Man because they use high tech to half. He got the robotic eye. He can run. He's got the robotic legs. He's got very strong, half human, half robot. Well, this is it. This is scary, interesting. But Elon then said another cool thing about Optimus um, in the US, there's 2 million amputees. And using partnering with the company Neuralink that he founded, if you combine a Neuralink implant with a robotic arm, so, an implant in your brain so that your nerves can basically bypass the amputation and control the robotic hands and the legs or whatever it is, had their arms and legs amputated. We believe we can give you basically a cyborg body, $6 Million Man in real life, but no, it won't cost 6 million, maybe $60,000 bet. That is mind blowing. Here we are talking about, you know, yeah. So we're talking about not only at the same breath that we're talking about a Tesla bot being built. Now we're talking about, a humanoid hybrid bot.
Hmm.
Yeah.
It's insane. It is absolutely insane. And, we're seeing the development. They're going into human trials for essentially the same type of thing, not cyborg, but, bypassing nerve injuries, whether it's quadriplegia, paraplegia,
Yeah.
and restoring sight, restoring hearing, like anything that is just a symptom of breakdown somewhere in the nervous system, being able to jump across that and restore function to people like that in and of itself is
Yeah.
huge science fiction. And then, it seems relatively inconsequential. Like, okay, if you can do that from human tissue to human tissue, why not just, make it a little robot arm?
There's going to be a lot of moral considerations here. The haves and have-nots. The rich will be superhuman. Even if you don't have amputation, you might want to do it. But anyways, okay, let's not get ahead of ourselves. But it's fast coming. This is fun. That's why I love doing what I'm doing. Tesla, Neuralink, bots, and autonomous driving. They're here. We're talking about it, and we're even talking about partnerships now. So, thank you, Hans. That was a lot of fun. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Herbert. Really enjoyed it.
Okay, next time. Thanks, everybody.